Welcome to the Talk Sports Podcast. We are your hosts, Caleb
and Alec.
Today we are talking sports, and we're talking NFL free agency. A lot has happened in a little bit of time, so we're excited to talk about it. Alec, I know you've been waiting for this moment, so let's hear it, Alec. How are you feeling about this?
So good, man. This is so boring. Who watches basketball and football anymore? I mean, not football. I mean, basketball or baseball. Who watches that anymore? Like, hurry up! Like, come on, college basketball almost over. Now it's actually getting pretty entertaining. NBA sucks. MLB is for people who are 60 and older.
I like football.
I know. I feel like you try to act like you're a basketball fan, but you're really not.
Yeah, okay. Today we're talking NFL free agency, Alec, and we're going to go position by position talking about some of these big moves, and we're just going to talk about how we feel they fit and if it was really a good move. So we're going to start in the quarterback department. Now, there's one name that we're all thinking and talking about, and I cheer for the Vikings and I cheer for the Falcons, and I don't know how to feel about this. His name is Kirk Cousins, and he plays football, and he is making a ton of money, and he's on the move. Alec, what are your thoughts about this new Kirk Cousins deal, leaving the Vikings for the Falcons?
Smart move for Kirk Cousins. Dumb move for the Vikings. Kirk Cousins is getting paid $180 million for 4 years, and what the smart move for Kirk Cousins is, he's been a good quarterback, and he's finally getting to go to a place where I don't know how good their offensive line is. I don't think it's that good at all, but their offensive talent around them can get them pretty far. And they have a new coach in Raheem Morris that will probably win games just because some of the defense might just show up at bend but don't break kind of defense. But the downside for Minnesota in this scenario is this. What did they do? Like, I know he's an Andrew Berry disciple, but here's the issue he has. He said, okay, goodbye, old quarterback. Let's try to get a new quarterback. Okay, yes, you just traded for two first-round picks, but they're not in the top 5 pick. If you don't have a top 5 pick, you're not going to go get anybody good. So they probably have to get rid of the 2 first-round picks to be in the top 5 to try to get somebody decent or even is willing to start. Because there's nobody other quarterbacks. All the quarterbacks have been signed.
Well,
Gardner Minshew's already signed.
I mean, I think they can still get a good quarterback in the draft. I think someone might slide to them, and I think ultimately,
but they have to trade up. There's no way. There's too many people who are willing to trade up.
Sure, but I think this ultimately, as it hurts because it's Kirk and Vikings fans want him, but I don't think it was a bad decision to not pay him, because going into next year they have a chance to have the most cap space of any NFL team, and they're getting younger and they're looking into the future, and I think that's the right move, and they're picking up veterans on cheap deals, short-term deals, and I like it for them. And I think ultimately it'll be good for long-term for the Vikings, even though it's going to hurt. But I think for Atlanta, this was a big-time play. We'll see how it pans out.
It was a win. It was a win for that. Everybody in that organization is a win. Like, if you're not saying that, I don't know what you're watching and what you're seeing on the field. It's a win. For everybody in that organization, is a win. Like, getting that quarterback is so hard to get. Like, what are you going to get, Justin Fields? He only played maybe 5 or 6 games that are great. But Kirk Cousins, you keep him protected, and you give him Bijan, and you give him Drake London, and then you Kyle Pitts, then
who did they add? They added a few new receivers. Darnell Mooney, I think they added.
See, like, he was good. He had that 1,000-yard season, and he might not be the guy that people are saying, oh, he's the number 1, but he's a pretty good number 2. He kind of reminds me of Tyler Boyd, where he was the number 1 at one point, but now he's not that good anymore, so he's more like a number 2. But he's a great number 2. Like, if you need somebody to like catch a big third down, he's your guy. You
Yeah.
have to scheme him open. And the good thing is, you don't have Arthur Smith who tries to scheme in a third tight end for a touchdown. Like, Arthur Smith was just terrible. Like, why did you keep him so long? And now you have Raheem Morris. And I think he hired somebody from the Shanahan system. And I think usually, even if he's not a good play caller, you have that motion where you can get people open. And that helps win games. Like those little
Yeah.
stuff where you can get that safety tripped up with the corner and then they accidentally like bump into each other for a second. They don't fall over. But that leaves somebody open for like 1 second. In the NFL, people are that fast to catch the ball in 1 second and just go. Like
Yeah. I think that Atlanta won big here. I think that cap space is going to hurt, but I think it's going to help them in the long run. They got a lot of young talent there and a new coach, and I think that Atlanta was a quarterback
this is the
away, and we'll
time to win.
see. Yeah,
This is the time to win. When everybody's on the rookie deal, like the cap
Tyler
doesn't matter.
Algier, Bijan, they got weapons there, and I think that their defense was already solid last year. I think this could be the year they could surprise some people definitely. Our next team, and I think me and you agree that this team has just been winning in free agency. Russell Wilson to Pittsburgh, and not only did they get him, but they got him cheap, and they got him for 1 year. And I think this was the right move for them. They also added today Justin Fields, and I think that's also a big. And they hardly paid anything for him. And I think Pittsburgh won on both these deals. And I like Russell Wilson. I think he's still got a little left in the tank. And that Mike Tomlin team there, they are kind of going chips in and saying, we're all in. Let's see what we can do with Russ. And if not, then we got this backup plan, this freakishly athletic quarterback who has a chance to develop under another athletic big arm quarterback named Russell Wilson and hopefully can start to make better decisions. But I think ultimately this is a huge win for Pittsburgh.
The cool thing about this is Mike Tomlin only has 1 year in this deal left, and he says, "Okay, whatever, beep him." Like for real. Like if I go out, I'm going out my way. Like I'm going out with the run. I'm going out with an old quarterback. Like he is like a coach where he needs a veteran. Like he can't go with young guys. Like he can't. He's so used to Big Ben, somebody who's like a pro's pro, like somebody that knows how to play. And now he gets to sit there and say, "Okay, I don't have to worry about him making a dumb decision. If he gets killed, it's his fault. Like this is his last chance to play. If he doesn't
Yeah,
play well, it's either backup or just to retire. Like for real. Like he doesn't have much leverage. Mike Tomlin is happy because they're running the ball. Russell Wilson, this is how he won before. He is a game manager. Legit. Like when he in the
but he's a
Legion
good
of
one,
Boom,
man. He's a good one.
he I would say the top 5 game manager of all time.
Game
Like
manager has this icky
I
word
know, but
connotation, but
listen.
no, I think
Like
it's a good thing. I like the title game manager. I think you can be a game manager and be a great quarterback. And one of the biggest parts of being a quarterback is managing the game. So if you call me a game manager, I'm here for it. Like, great. I manage the game well. That's awesome. It's like a point guard. They facilitate. If you're a great facilitator,
mm,
I'm, what better compliment can you give to a point guard?
that's a great point because like Mike Tomlin is like I'm not gonna lose. If I lose in the playoffs, okay, whatever. But he's not gonna lose to teams that he should have beat. Like he's not gonna lose to the Cardinals, even if he's supposed to win. He's not gonna lose to them, like no matter what. But last year that did happen. They lost to the Cardinals with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. And I know people like Josh Dobbs, but like there was an issue after that. Like people were pointing the finger at Mike Tomlin. I listened to Pittsburgh radio and they were going off. Like they literally had to mute someone's mic because someone who loved Mike Tomlin was saying that he's doing the same but he did last year when they're not winning.
Yeah. At this point, yes, we love Russell Wilson. I think this is the right move for them, and we'll look to see what Pittsburgh can do this
Oh
year.
yeah, one more thing. They what they've been doing is Kohlberg, their new GM, because their old GM stepped down for retirement, and he has literally said he is like, I think he must have hate the way the old GM went. So he has released Mason Cole, the center, and they're probably gonna go draft the center in the draft. And he's released a lot of those guys that the old GM had brought. It's because he is a different philosophy. He's like the new philosophy, like Ivy League. Like he sees stuff in the future right now. Like he's not seeing what the old Pittsburgh Steelers see, where they you have to go with the veteran. No, he's trying to go young but also old. But that's also how you win championships. But Russell Wilson is the perfect move for this new GM, where Mike Tomlin's comfortable and the GM is comfortable. I don't think Mike Tomlin's comfortable with Kenny Pickett at all. That's why he fired his offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, who they were best friends for like apparently like 5 years. Like probably longer than that, I forget. Like apparently they were friends before Mike Tomlin became a head coach. So I thought it was a great thing what this new GM did. Him and Mike Tomlin seeing eye to eye. I don't think the old GM saw eye to eye with Mike Tomlin. And that keeps you around in Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh is they want to win. If you're not a good GM, you're out of there after 1 year. That's why
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin's on the hot seat. Nobody's talking about it. If they win, and they get to the playoffs and they get boat raced, who do we blame?
Yeah.
Like
Pittsburgh. Yeah. These fans also, their whole fan base expects them to win even when they probably shouldn't. And they think they will. And this year, I think they have a chance. They have a chance to do something to shock some teams. And at this point, like we said, we're a faith-based podcast, and we're here just to shout out some players. And today, I'd like to shout out Russell Wilson, who has been has voiced his faith and voiced the fact that he's a Christian and he loves Jesus and gives the glory to God after every win, and is there praising him even through times where Russell Wilson has kind of gotten some heat, taken some heat on the Broncos, and he still continues to praise the Lord through it all. So we just want to shout out Russell Wilson for loving Jesus, man. That's awesome. And we just love to see athletes in the NFL just giving the glory to the Lord. So shout out Russell Wilson for that. And we're going to fire through these last few quarterbacks. We kind of mentioned Justin Fields, Alec. Do you think that's a win for Pittsburgh? Yes or no?
Oh yeah, they're seeing what they want to do for this year.
Yeah.
Like they want to see what they want for this new regime, like this new change of GM. They're seeing the future right now.
Yeah, I think that's big.
If Russ doesn't play well, yes, they might get to the playoffs and get bow raced. But who says Justin Fields doesn't sit down and just watch what he does? Like, who doesn't say, okay, Russ likes to stay in the pocket, and if he knows he's going to get sacked, he goes down the middle and gets 5 yards. 5 yards is still a lot. Most running backs don't average 5 yards.
Yeah.
Like, and it helps because now you're like second and manageable, third and manageable. Like, you're not in like way back. Like you don't have to like sit back and play football.
You're not putting yourself out of field goal range. That's a big part of the game there. And that's a big part of Justin Fields where he needs to grow is he needs to learn how to avoid taking these sacks and avoid getting teams in down and distance and having to heave out big long throws. Okay, next up we have Sam Darnold, who right now kind of sits at top that Minnesota depth chart, but probably will end up sitting behind some rookie. How do we feel about the signing, Alec?
It's just a classic Kevin O'Connell thing. Like, for real. Like, he sat on the Shanahan playbook. Kevin O'Connell came from Sean McVay. Shanahan and Sean McVay were in the same coaching staff together. So they know each other pretty well. And they run similar systems to each other. That's why I see a lot of the Browns sign a lot of 49ers players and Rams players because they play the same system. So it's not that much different from going to Minnesota to San Francisco or San Francisco to Minnesota. Like, I know it's a little bit different right now just because they have an air kind of offense. But It's basically the same. If you break down the play calls and it's basically the same.
Yeah, and I think we'll see. Minnesota will probably draft someone who fits that
Oh yeah,
system, but they kind of built that system around Kirk. It felt like
yeah. They updated the Sean McVay kind of system. They didn't do the Shanahan system because the Shanahan system's not really meant for the um, Eric kind of offense, but the Sean
sure,
McVay is like he really did well with Matthew Stafford in that Super Bowl run. He's like, okay, I can motion people out wide, and like have them go back and forward to right to left or left to right, and that helped get Cooper Cup open. That helped get OBJ open. That helped all those dudes like Van Jefferson get open, and now they have a Super Bowl because of that.
yeah. Uh, Now going to Oakland with Mustache Mania Gardner Minshew. Um,
Man, that's a smart move. Antonio Pierce, I love that dude. That dude he's a player's player, like for real.
and
Like he is a former player. He loves the players. He let the practice squad players go on the field. Like if you're part of the team, come sit with us during the game. You don't have to sit at home watch on TV. Like see what the players do. Like you could be in the game next week. And
yeah,
I loved it because so many players respected him. And he's a Super Bowl champ. He was on the practice squad, on special teams, a starting linebacker, a captain, and a Super Bowl champ. And now he's looking and says, I've been in these shoes before. I've been the last guy picked. I've been the last guy like standing when the
so you think
53-man roster.
he can kind of bridge that gap to the NFL for
Oh yeah.
Gardner Minshew? I mean, he's shown flashes of he's got this moxie, this swagger, and he's kind of
Oh,
sometimes he has big games, and you're like, dang, this guy can play. He's kind of a gamer. And then other times you're like, oh, Gardner Minshew probably shouldn't be starting, but he
well,
can win you
he,
game. He can win you some games
he's
for sure.
I always say there's higher tier 32 quarterbacks and there's lower tier 32 quarterbacks. And he's towards the lower tier of 32 quarterbacks where he's good enough to be a starter, but he could be also a great backup, like a top two or top one backup. Like he's
He's
towards the end, towards the tail end, because his highs are high, but his lows are low, like very low. He can throw you 3 picks, and then you could be out of the game in like before the first quarter.
But he doesn't. He keeps fighting even after that. Do you think that Gardner Minshew could get to that higher tier if he just gets a little more work?
I mean, I always like calling the middle tier. The middle tier is like, yeah, even if you try the hardest, you can't be in the top tier. Because
Jimmy
those are
Garoppolo.
guys. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo. He's in the middle tier. Where like the top tier is like when the game is like almost over, and people don't think you're gonna win. That's like a Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or like
Brock Purdy.
Tom. No, he's not. He's the middle tier.
Oh
Like
no,
Tom Brady, when he had like 30 seconds on the clock, he was walking down the field like he had like 5 minutes on the clock,
just like
and
Brock.
nobody was worried. And he knew
Yeah,
everybody on the field knew they were gonna lose. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, this game's over," because
yeah,
they had so much confidence and they gave fear to the defense because they could be at their own 50-yard line and then flip the field in like in 2 seconds. And you're like, oh crap, I'm up by 10. Like, that's how good they are. Like, they could like slice you, get down the field, and win a game, and nobody would be shocked. Nobody would be like, okay, that's classic Mahomes. That's classic Tom Brady. That's classic Joe Burrow. That's classic Justin Herbert or Josh Allen.
yeah. Sure. So you're sticking with him in the middle tier. What about our boy? I know you like this guy. I really like this guy too.
Sure.
And I think this is a big move for this team. Sam Howell. And nobody's really talking about this guy. They're talking about that draft class with Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett as one of the worst quarterback draft classes ever. And, I think out of that draft class, I think Sam Howell's the best quarterback. And I think that he's not a bad quarterback. And the fact that Seattle just kind of snuck
Well,
him on the
Seattle
roster.
is Seattle's such a good sneaky good organization and they have a good culture is when they pick the guys that you don't think are gonna win and they take them from other teams and say, okay, you be my future. When Geno Smith turns, when he starts looking like he's 30, put Sam Howell in. Nobody thinks he's that good, but he was leading the league in passing. He had the worst offensive line. Seattle finally fixed their offensive line, and sad to say, it was before Russ left. Like he
After,
maybe
yeah.
had after, probably towards last year he had one good offensive line,
Yeah,
but they fired the offensive line coach, hired a new one, and that guy's done a great job. Like their offensive line is great, and people are trying to trade for their offensive line, even their backups, because they know how good their offensive line is. And the good thing is, Sam Howell doesn't have to get sacked 27
what did he
times.
finish? He finished with 50+ sacks, didn't he?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe
I
that's
wouldn't be.
wrong. I don't know. He got sacked a lot. He led the league in sacks. I mean, dude just got hit after hit and led the league in passing,
Here's the good thing about that is like
or
this.
not led, but he was up there.
Here's the good thing. A lot of people say, well, he led the league in passing. That means he had more interceptions. He didn't have that many interceptions, really.
He had a few, but not. I mean, it wasn't Baker or it wasn't
It
James
really,
Winston
I
Chase.
it really wasn't his fault. It was he got hit. The ball got tipped because he got hit. Nobody was blocking him. Their receivers were good, but you're looking at Terry McLaurin. He's had a great season,
Yeah,
and
Terry
then
McLaurin had one of his. He had I think his best season in the league so far.
here's the good thing about that. It's like when Geno Smith turns old, like when he's not good in football, you have that backup that most organizations wish they had, like somebody that could actually play football.
Yeah, it's true. I think that Sam Howell could be the starting quarterback there within the next 2 years. And don't be surprised to hear his name more because I think that was a great move for Seattle. And I think we'll continue to hear that name pop up. Sam Howell, he's kind of a dog. Moving on to our running backs. And we're going to kind of just run through these, Alec, and just see which ones you think was a good deal, not a good deal, and just quick run through. Starting with one of the biggest deals that we've seen so far, and that's Saquon Barkley going to Philly. And I think this could be huge. That Philly line definitely hit a
I think.
downgrade.
Oh, Philly's cooked. I think their coach is. I told people this. They say the coach is the product of their offensive coordinator, but it's the other way around in Philly. The coordinators are the coach. The coordinators,
You mean the coordinators that, yes, I see what you're saying. You're flipping
the
it.
product of the head coach. Because when he lost Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, he looked lost out there. He looked like he didn't know how to call an offense. He had like what's his name? Is it Ben Johnson? Yeah, Ben Johnson called the place in Philly, and he looked lost out there. He didn't look like he knew what he was doing at all. And the crazy part is they often took 10 steps back with their coordinators. And now everybody in Philly is realizing, wow, they're not doing anything. Wow, this Nick Sirianni is not looking good. He's folding under pressure. Philly media is already after him because this offseason looks like not good because after this, there's a lot more stories that are coming out against him. A lot of players don't like him because he's really folding in front of Philly media, and you can't do that in Philly. You need to be tough in Philly. I think he's going to be fired because I don't think he's a good offensive coordinator and a head coach / head coach. I know he doesn't call plays, but he hired Kellen Moore. I don't think that's going to help him. He hired Vic Fangio. That's not going to help him. And the issue he's going to have is this. If they don't do well, he's the last person gone. I mean, he's the first person gone. Because right now, Howie Roseman is not looking so pretty right now. Because so far, Howie Roseman this offseason got fleeced. Like, they gave the Steelers a third-round pick for, no, the Steelers. Yeah, it was the Steelers. Yeah. So the Steelers traded with the Eagles, and they got a third round pick, and it was really bad for Howie Roseman because he's
Yeah,
usually the master of fleecing people. He got like AJ Brown, and he traded away like nothing.
yeah, and
So
I
I
mean,
really,
I
so I'm
definitely
not
think
really,
that
I'm
I
not
don't.
really high on Philly. I think they're gonna have a really
But
bad
are
year.
you? Do you think that Saquon Barkley going there
That's
was
not
good for
gonna
them?
help him. No.
I mean, it's definitely a huge move. And when you
Okay.
look at the team, they have so many weapons, but that offensive line took a hit this offseason and lost a couple of their starters. And I think in big Jason Kelsey's gone, and they lost another All-Pro lineman, and now they have to look to the draft to kind of replace that. And I think that offensive line is still decent enough to
Yep.
get to have a good offense. But I think that defense is still not quite there. It wasn't really there last year. It wasn't like it was 2 years ago when they made the
Well,
Super Bowl run.
I told you, like, Jonathan Gannon was a big deal about that. Jonathan Gannon is a defensive kind of guy. The reason why I know Jonathan Gannon is because they hired the Browns the tight end coach of the Browns, who became the offensive coordinator, is because he was a defensive kind of guy. He learned under Jim Schwartz, and now he's hiring all these offensive coordinators in his area, and they were winning because he hired someone off a staff that knows offense, and he's very defensive guy. He this offseason he brought a lot of defense on his team because that's what he knows, and he was big on blitzing, and this guy's blitzing, and now they weren't blitzing; they were just going with a 4-man front. No, nothing cool, nothing extra, nothing scary. It's just very vanilla. Like everybody knew what they're gonna do. Nobody moved. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, Definitely. I think Philly, I don't know if they'll contend this year, but I think Saquon could be a big move for that. I think that offense is still going to be scary, but I don't think the defense is quite there. But we'll see if Jalen Hurts is able to hold up still with lack of a line. And I think that tush push is still going to be there with two of the biggest squatters in the league. I think Jalen Hurts squats the most of any quarterback, and I think Saquon's one or two in running backs, and I think that's going to be a fun little play there for them. But yeah, let's keep moving. Josh Jacobs to the Green Bay. Good move, bad move.
Um,
I think for Josh Jacobs, it was the right move getting out of Oakland, and he got paid 4 years, $48 million. That's quite a bit for a running back, especially for that length of a deal. I think that's big for him, and I think that he deserves that with the last 2 seasons. And I think for Green Bay, I think it was a decent move. I like it. I think it's an upgrade over Aaron Jones. Not a huge upgrade, but I think it's an upgrade. And I think that Josh Jacobs, when healthy and at his best, is a top 5 running back in the NFL.
yeah, great move for Green Bay, and I just think it was just they had those like quick backs where you can pass it to them and they can get screenplays. This is the guy who runs north to south. He's a guy who will you can't just tackle him with one linebacker. You tackle him with two. Like he's really hard to tackle. And this is just somebody like if you need a first down, he'll give you a first down.
Yeah,
And with Jordan Love in this air raid offense they have, Jordan Love has looked awesome. I think Jordan Love's is another Green Bay legend just because his performance last year. I was very impressed. They almost beat the 49ers, and I was very impressed the way he played in the playoffs. Like he beat the Cowboys. He beat
I
the
mean,
brakes
yeah,
off them.
he played good there. He didn't play his best against the Niners, but he kept him in there. He played pretty. It was a rainy game, so I mean, that's
He
expected.
wasn't rattled. That's the issue with rookie quarterbacks. They always are so rattled in the playoffs once something goes wrong.
Yeah, I think he could be big. Next up, we have Derrick Henry to Baltimore, which is going to be kind of scary to have. Pass run option with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is a little RPO is scary as heck. I mean, I think linebackers are already shaking in their boots seeing that. And I think that Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry. And I think Baltimore is like, this is it. If they can't make a push this year, I think they're done. I don't know if
Yeah,
they will, but I
I
think
think they're done.
I
I
think
think
this is it. This is like, I mean, Lamar has not been able to win in the playoffs, and that's been the story. But I think adding a piece like Derrick Henry is huge for that offense. I think
I
it'll be
think there's
interesting to
gonna
see
be
what they do.
issues in Baltimore. I really do. I think they don't realize they just let Patrick Queen walk. That was a big mistake in themselves. Like for real. Like Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith work perfect. You have a guy in Roquan Smith that everybody watches. Everybody was like, watch this guy, watch this guy. And Patrick Queen was literally loving it because he was getting interceptions, he was getting fumbles, he was getting sacks, and all the things that get you paid, he did. And now they're gonna put some rookie Ojavi in probably, who's unexperienced, hasn't played that much, and now if they lose in the playoffs and the defense is not looking good, and they lost their defensive coordinator, and they lost Geno Smith, they lost a couple other guys, I forget their names. But hopefully that doesn't affect them, and hopefully year two of Todd Monken doesn't fail Lamar, because I have a feeling that Todd Monken's gonna get his own brain that stay in the pocket, stay in the pocket, stay in the pocket, and Lamar is not gonna be Lamar. Cause
Yeah.
and then when he needs to run, he won't run, and then they get pushed backwards. And they need to get working on Lamar's accuracy. Like even the game that Lamar lost to the Browns, there was plays where it still looked like Lamar, where he just chucked it up and helped someone caught it. And he had like the fourth string corner catch it, Mike Ford go the other way and get stopped at the 10-yard line, and then they scored. So those are the little stuff. And the running backs, I feel like, well Baltimore runs the running backs way too much. They always get injured.
Yeah, we'll see. Um, let's go Joe Mixon to Houston. Good move, bad move for Joe. Good move, bad move for Houston.
Good move for Houston. Classic Houston. They're looking really good. They're probably contender and probably gonna win the division. I wouldn't be shocked if they're the number 2 seed in the NFL. CJ Stroud looks really good. CJ Stroud
Phenomenal.
is dangerous.
He's good.
He put 50 on the Browns. That was insane. That was the best game I've ever seen off a rookie. Like he was literally beating all pros. He was making people look dumb. He was making the corners, or 2 all pro corners, look like they never played football before, and
He,
passing to practice squad players and making him look good. He made Nico Collins, he made Tank Dell, he made a couple other dudes who would lower end draft pick look like insane. And now he just got more talent.
yeah, I mean, I think those guys are definitely decent, though. I think they are good receivers, and I think they both benefit off each other. But I think C.J. Stroud had an incredible rookie year, and I'm excited to see what he does next year. And I think for Joe, this was a win for him. Well, I think it's a win because he got paid. And I think for Houston, this is definitely, I think it's definitely a win where Houston is now adding a running back piece that they have not had. And I think that is going to benefit that system a ton. So I think it's a win for them for sure. I think it's a loss here for Cincinnati. Losing them was huge, and they added Zach Moss, but I don't know if that's going to be really it for them. But I think Joe Mixon, that's a win. Cincinnati, that's a loss. Tony Pollard to Tennessee to kind of replace that Derrick Henry void is definitely an interesting move to me, because Tony Pollard is not Derrick Henry at all. And I don't know if he's the long-term solution there. And I don't think Tennessee's really in a place to contend. So I thought
Tennessee,
this was an interesting move.
I don't know why. They let Brabo walk. I think Brabo was mad at the front office. They let him walk. I think it was a bad move. I really do. And the issue the, the issue was nobody in this front office in Tennessee did pay the guys they want to pay. They let AJ Brown walk and let him pay Calvin Ridley a whole bunch of money.
I definitely think that they added a lot of weapons, and I don't know if that was the best move. I don't think they're ready to contend, and I think losing Vrabel was huge. And I think that this has been a rough offseason for them, if I'm being honest. But I think it's definitely interesting adding Ridley would be an interesting piece, and we'll see how that benefits DeAndre Hopkins if DeAndre gets back to DeAndre, or if he's still kind of that same okay wide receiver that he was, where he had a couple big flashes. But I think DeAndre can get back to him, and I think that'll end up being pretty good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think for Tennessee, that was not the best move. Adding Pollard, I think they would have a better look at looking to the draft for somebody, or just saving that cap space. Aaron Jones to Minnesota, I really like
Perfect
that.
move. Perfect move. Literally perfect move, because literally this whole offense for Minnesota has not looked good this offseason. Not because they got worse, just because they lost the quarterback, and it just, I think it helped a lot of Minnesota fans feel a little bit better about this offseason, because they got Aaron Jones. They're like, man, the guy we hate now we love.
It's
It's the
true.
same thing with the Browns. We hated Joe Flacco, and we love him now. Like, for real. Like, I love Joe Flacco. That man was hilarious. He came on the Ultimate Cleveland Brown show.
It definitely was a good Band-Aid. It definitely doesn't heal the wound, but it definitely was a good Band-Aid for the Kirk Cousins move.
Oh
So
yeah,
I really like the Aaron Jones move.
that was like, I'm sorry we got rid of Kirk. Here's something different.
Yeah, I think that was a good move. Austin Eckler, Alec. This is an interesting move to Washington.
The Commanders have a lot of old guys. I just like that. They have a lot of like 30-old guys. They got Bobby Wagner. They got Austin Eckler. They got a couple other old guys. I forget their names. They're all 30. So I think it's gonna be a good offseason for the Commanders. They pick the right guys. They might make the playoffs. I really do, because I think they have a solid enough roster to make the playoffs. And I like Dan Quinn. I love him because I think he's a different culture setter, where he gets his culture in really quick. It's don't make things up. Do what you have to do, and win. Like, that's the kind of culture he sets, and I think they're gonna do great things. And honestly, if Dan Quinn doesn't do it right this year, they're probably gonna go get Ben Johnson. I really think it was a placeholder for Ben Johnson if it doesn't go well.
Yeah, for sure. Zach Moss to Cincinnati, we talked about a little bit.
Oh
Antonio
my
Gibson
gosh.
is a piece that I like. In New England, I think he kind of fits that role, and I think that if
Not
he
gonna do
can get rid
much.
of the pummeling problem, he could be a big asset there.
Oh yeah, he's very fast. If you give him space, he's gonna get you a 50-yard bomb. But that's about it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to our wide receivers. We talked a little bit about Calvin Ridley, but how are we feeling about the Calvin Ridley move, Alec?
Dumb. That's the worst decision. Like, do you know him and Amari Cooper are the same age? And Amari Cooper has more.
Well, I mean, he got suspended for an entire year, and he's been hurt quite a bit. But yes, Amari Cooper and he came into the league a lot later than Amari Cooper did.
Yeah, it's a bad move for everybody in that party. Not for Calvin Ridley, but for the agent. It's gonna look awesome for him. He's gonna get a lot more clients, and Calvin Ridley is gonna be a lot more rich. But hey, for Tennessee, they look great. Tennessee looks terrible after that, and Tennessee signed him. And now they're stuck with him. And if he doesn't do well, they're stuck with the contract. That's
Yeah,
their
and
fault.
I think that was.
They're done. That's the end of the story. They're
I would have
terrible.
said that I thought that the move was a loss for Jacksonville, but they avoided paying him, which was huge, and they also kind of paid a lot less for a quarterback that I think is at this point in his career of similar value with Gabe Davis. Paying a heck of a lot less for Gabe Davis, I think could be huge for Jacksonville, adding that weapon to kind of filling that need for Calvin Ridley, and ultimately I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's a good move for
Jacksonville's
them.
in some hot water too.
Yeah. Then we have, I think, a huge move this offseason that we'll look back and say, wow, that was big, was Marquise Brown to Kansas City. and I think that adds a legitimate
Mm,
close to tier one wide receiver with
yeah.
Marquise Brown to add to that Patrick Mahomes offense. I think is scary.
Well, well, the issue with Marquise Brown was I really think he was demanding a lot of money. He could have got 24 million. It would have been like a 3-year deal, or maybe a 4-year deal.
I mean, he got $7 million for 1 year, so I'm assuming it'd be less per year long term with
Well,
KC.
well, well, he was like the big name. If you look at free agencies, the top 10 free agencies, he was up there.
Yeah,
And I think you're just demanding way too much. When you do that, you really put yourself behind the 8 ball. Like if you hit the 8 ball in, you're setting yourself for a big contract but very little guaranteed. Or you're signing yourself for a huge guaranteed and a huge contract. If you don't plan out well, nobody's gonna sign you after you're done because you failed in that organization you went.
yeah,
And now he's in a great situation. Not the worst situation you could be in. I think Devontae Parker should have signed with the Kansas City Chiefs because he's still pretty young. I think he's like 26. I thought he should
is
have
it
signed a
really?
one.
That's crazy.
And I think he's 26. I think he's still pretty young.
Like,
And I thought he should have signed like a cheap 1-year deal with the Chiefs because if you go off with Patrick Mahomes, somebody's gonna pay you. Somebody's gonna pay you. Because even if it was just Mahomes, well, I've seen a lot of teams sign players that were with the Patriots for 1 year with Tom Brady, and when they had maybe 1,000 yards and a couple of touchdowns, they might have got the deal. And New England never likes to pay receivers,
yeah,
and now if Marquise has a great year, hey, he gets paid. He might get money.
yeah. Alec, who do you think? As we wrap this up, who do you think the biggest free agency so far team winner is, and biggest free agency loser is?
Well, I'm a Browns fan. I hate saying this, but the Pittsburgh Steelers might have just saved their season in Mike Tomlin's job, and they won't look
Yeah,
like an
I
idiot
mean they
this
went and
year.
grabbed Patrick Queen too. That was huge.
Patrick Queen out of LSU. I've always told people he's a little bit different. He's not your typical linebacker that covers sideline to sideline.
Yeah,
They literally like this year. I saw him cover the slot receiver, the linebacker, and he kept up with him the whole time. And then he quickly passed on to the safety, and that receiver did nothing the
yeah,
whole game because he was so good at passing the coverage onto a safety because he would follow the dude to the middle of the field and then quickly pass it on to the safety, and that guy was covered, and that hurts a lot of teams because they use the slant receivers to get guys open, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers can do it. Mike Tomlin gets killed every year. He puts a linebacker on a slot receiver, and people get open every year, and people kill him every year for that. And now he is the guy that can do it. And now if they make it far in the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked because they've just gotten better.
yeah, for sure. Who do you think the biggest loser is so far in the offseason? Browns haven't done anything.
Well, they added a couple of people. I don't think they're losing. They added quite a bit. I like who they added. I like Jordan Hicks, Devin Bush, um, Jerry Judy. I know a lot of people who are not high on Jerry Judy, but Jerry Judy needs to grow up.
Yeah. Who do you think the biggest loser is?
Oh, I would say the biggest loser is the Miami Dolphins. Let me tell
Dolphins.
you why. Well, no, actually, not the Dolphins. Never mind. Sorry, the Dolphins. It's the Bills. Sorry, it's the Bills because they had to release a lot of dudes. They let Jordan Poller walk. That's not really great. They had to let a couple other
Davis
guys.
too.
They had to let a lot of guys walk, and the Broncos are also in that category. They had to let Jeffrey Simmons walk, and a couple other their defensive studs walk this offseason too. So that's not a good sign. The Broncos and the Bills are in the same boat. They had to let a lot of people walk to pick good quarterback. And the issue is the Broncos didn't have a good quarterback. They owe Russell $82 million, I think, right? I think so. I think it's
Yeah,
somewhere
they're
around
paying him
there.
a lot. And I think for me, I think my biggest free agency winner is I think it's close, but I think I'd go with Houston. I think Houston added some pieces where they added Daniil Hunter on defense too, and
Yeah,
Aziz
for
Al
the
Shair, the corner, is a stud, and they've just kind of loaded up, and they're poised to make a run. And I think CJ Stroud in his second year could do some
yeah,
damage. And I think that team
yeah.
is going to be
They're
huge.
they're looking pretty good. I mean, honestly, the people will say winners or losers, but it's all that matters during the regular season. Like some team that made like 2 moves could be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's true.
Somebody that made 10 moves could be in last place.
Yeah, it's true. And I
We
think,
see it every year. We say, "Oh,
yeah,
look, they made a move." Let's be realistic. Who's gonna make the playoffs? Who's not? Like the Texans, everybody won't be shocked if they make the playoffs. Nobody's gonna be shocked if they make the playoffs. Because we saw what they did last year. Yes, he might have got blown out by the Ravens, but he had so much less talent than the Ravens that game. It showed. Like the Ravens can do anything. The Ravens were just blitzing. They were just disguise blitzing. They were doing anything they want. They were doing 4-man fronts, and they still was sacking CJ Stroud. So they did anything they want because they had so much talent on that team.
yeah,
And CJ Stroud was like literally the number one team in IR in the league. So like their offensive linemen, they're playing with the fifth center on their practice squad, who he barely knew. And you're talking about the Ravens with a great pass rush. It's like, okay, I can play with a fifth ring
yeah,
center. It's like literally playing in the preseason. So I just think the teams that are gonna play well are the teams that get in the hot start right away. Because if you don't get in the hot start right away, it's not gonna look good for you. Because if you fall to 1-3 quick, it's not gonna look good.
yeah, for
Or
sure.
I mean, it's football. Like for real. Like not everybody's gonna be a great team. Not
Yeah,
everybody's gonna be awesome. Who we're gonna be like, yes. We were literally praising Russell Wilson last year for being on the Broncos. It's like, oh, trust me, they're gonna be good. What did he do this year? Nothing. We praised a lot of teams for changing
yeah,
their philosophy, and then now they didn't do anything. They're blowing everything up.
yeah, for sure. And I think for me, my biggest loser is the Denver Broncos. And I think losing their quarterback, losing and now still paying him a ton of money, and I don't even know what's going on in Denver, to be honest. And I think they lost also and missing out on getting potentially a quarterback with Justin Fields. They just have kind of just missed altogether.
Justin
Um,
Fields,
and I
Caleb, your
think
man.
something like that. He's kind of garbage, and I've been saying that for a while. Um,
You're not
but
a
I think
Justin Fields fan?
he's no, but he's got talent, and he could develop there. And I think that was a win for Denver, or not for Denver.
You're just mad Atlanta didn't get him.
Yeah, I didn't want him. But that is about all for us today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Talk Sports podcast, and we'll see you guys soon as we talk through some March Madness coming up. And there's been some wild stuff. We just like to shout out quick my Cyclones, who took the Big 12 in an awesome fashion. And if the committee doesn't consider them for a 1 seed, I'd be shocked. And I would be shocked if we got a 1 seed, but I would be a little frustrated if there wasn't at least a look there. With the same record as North Carolina and 2 wins over Houston, I think they deserve a shout out.
The one
we'll see.
seed scares me. I don't like the one seed. The one seed is terrible. I feel like every 1 seed gets upset. I just hate watching 1 seed. I'd rather be the 2 seed.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah,
next time.
until we lose the Peacock or Loyola.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for joining the Talk Sports podcast.
Okay.
We'll see you all next week.